Students of African history, Professor Eric Martin here. And yeah, welcome to, I won't quite call this the final surge, but we're getting there, right? So, what I want to do with this is just give you a couple of, kind of weekly updates as we slide into spring break. Make sure everybody kind of understands exactly where we're at, exactly, what we're getting ready to do and how to finish things off. We just finished up our discussions about the Atlantic slave trade. And I'm pretty happy for the most part with what went on with the discussion boards, like everything else. Um, some folks approached it with more detail than others. Detail, something I want to bring up. Some things I hope you learned through that discussion, some of them about the slave trade itself. Um, I hope you learned some of the details of the Atlantic slave trade. My guess is this is a topic we've all heard a little bit about, probably haven't spent very much time looking at. So, getting into some of the details in terms of how things operated over that time span are important. However, what else is important, particularly for the future secondary educators, but for everybody, is to know how to get more details, right? So that's part of it, right? The class is we're learning African history and we're also learning how to teach ourselves African history in the future. So hopefully that book helps us with that. We've got some details, we know where to get others. The intention was not for you to absorb all that information like a sponge. The intention was for you to make a good faith effort to engage with the documents, to deal with this, sometimes controversial historical period. I think something else that I really hope that you learned about the Atlantic slave trade itself is just how dynamic it was, or maybe influential is the better word, in shaping societies on both sides of the Atlantic, and how there winds up being a bond, right, across the Atlantic. You wind up, in many ways, with two Africas and two Europes, one on each side of the Atlantic, um, that aren't quite the same as they were before. So it's an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind. And then you've got those, processes that were in motion for so long and the structures that were in motion for so long. And then we can get to contemporary issues about how many of those structures are just in the past and how much of it we still, deal with in terms of the legacy of the past. In terms of history, one of the things I imagine you discovered reading these documents is some of the history of the Atlantic slave trade is fairly straightforward. And some of it is, more nuanced. And I think that is an important historical lesson for folks to have. I think that sometimes, many times, I get the request for the book or for the information or the story. And it's not always that easy. And I think that some of the historical debates that you saw in that document, or those documents, helps to demonstrate that you've got, in some cases, some arguments over facts. And in other cases, debates about what the facts that we can all agree on mean. And one of the things that I just really hope you pull out of that entire discussion is to really get the importance of reading a lot. History is a reading sport. There's no way around it, right? History is a reading sport. There's no way around it. I know some of y'all don't like hearing that, um, but it's true, and it's important for us to take a look at some of these historians and take a look at some of their methods and their techniques and their data to get an idea about how they're coming up with this idea that things worked in the past the way they said it did. In for lack of a better way to put it, it is a fact checker, right? You're checking facts about the past. And so what you have to do is you read one account and then you read a few other accounts. And then, as some of y'all pointed out, there seems to be a few of those accounts that we're just going to have to live with the fact that we're not certain. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's, ideas or everybody's opinions are equal. They're not. The ones with more data are more equal than the others. But sometimes you wind up with a scenario in which it's just not as resolved as sometimes we would like for it to be. And we just kind of have to live with that, right? Maybe it gets resolved in the future. And you guys did a good job laying that kind of stuff out in the discussion boards. Yeah, you guys did a pretty good job laying that kind of stuff out in the discussion boards, getting an idea about how things work. All right. That's our discussion on the Atlantic slave trade. Updates. I think I have everything laid out in the course modules as of today, except for the very last one. I think your assignments are all laid out for spring break, for post-spring break, until we get to the very end. And the last thing I need to deal with is shoot a setup video for the formal essay. We've been talking about the formal essay all semester, so that shouldn't be any big surprise. And we've talked about elements of it. But I'll come up with a video, particularly, like this one, on it. But all the details have been posted. And then what we're going to do with the African map quiz exactly. I'll tell you what I think we're going to do. And I told you this in a video previously. The quiz is going to cover African countries, nothing else. You should be studying countries of Africa. And I'll set up some way to take it online. You'll probably need a proctor, although if I can figure out a way to avoid that, I will. And it'll just be countries of Africa, and we'll have it, I'll try to deal with that over the spring break so that it's something along the lines of you can take it whenever you're ready, you just have to take it by the last day of class. And I think once I get those two things done, I'll have everything squared away for this class. All right, final thing I want to talk about. We're doing something semi out of order, kind of, maybe, and I just want to remind us all about this. We're having a discussion about the piece of historical fiction, Nervous Conditions, the second to the last week of class. It's a really fun book. It's a perfect book to take with you if you're going someplace for spring break. You've got the Bowen book to take too. But the Bowen book is more of one where you're, taking notes and trying to absorb the information. The Nervous Conditions, it's a story. And so you can just kind of enjoy the story. I just wanted to put that on your radar so that that didn't, surprise you. We've got 2 books left, the Bowen book, Nervous Conditions, a couple of videos, should all be good. So I think that's everything I have. Don't think twice about contacting me if you've got any questions about what's going on. I hope you guys are all going to go someplace awesome for spring break. I'm not, but but maybe you are. And yeah, enjoy your historical studies. Good luck.